Good evening, everybody. And good morning and good afternoon and all of that. And hello to the replay viewers and hello, Gemma.
Hey,
Welcome to another edition of the Mental Health Hour. How are we doing tonight?
not too bad. Not too
That's
bad.
that's good. Good. How's everything going with the recovery?
Um, I had my wires out tonight, so I'm a bit sore. Um, and within half an hour, it was good to tell that it was all back to normal. So
Oh, good.
I
Good.
don't know.
So it's everything's going well then, as well as can be.
Um, for now, it won't take me long to get back to being pre-surgery and feeling it all again. But hopefully, we won't have long to wait. They've approved the surgery in full, so hopefully, it won't take long.
And how's the mental health with all of it?
Oh, a bit fed up with it because, as they say, if if I'd have had the money to pay privately, I could have had it done tomorrow. So I'm quite aware of my situation and the pain that comes with it, and the fact that I have to wait so long. So yeah, it's not great,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
we're getting there. At
Well,
least recognizing it now that that's what it is.
at least we have another lovely episode of the Mental Health Hour to do.
Yes.
This one actually comes to you uh, by request of Gemma. Um, we were discussing topics to do, and this one was one of your front runners.
Mhm.
Um, I had quite a bit of information on guilt and shame um, already already in my notes and stuff, so it was
Mhm.
pretty easy to prepare. I just went back over some stuff to make sure we really broke down the difference, because there is a big difference between guilt and shame. I know they go hand in hand,
Mhm.
um, but you'll see here in a little bit the importance of knowing the difference and how we can actually utilize uh, guilt and shame to our benefit.
Mhm.
Hey, everybody coming on in. Thanks for joining us. How's everybody doing? So, off the get go, what do you kind of feel like? What brought you into wanting to do this episode in particular?
Um, I've felt both guilt and shame, and when I was going through my counselling, I went through a heck of a lot of this because of the way that I've been made to feel by my family and people that were around me at the time. So it was something that was pretty close to me anyway. But um, yeah, I think sometimes it took me a while to realize that there was a difference between them because I'd had so much pushed into my head by people that I thought wanted the best for me. And it wasn't until my counselor started to break it down and really show me the difference between them, and that some of the things that I was feeling wasn't my own subconscious feelings, and that they were things that were imposed on me by others. That I
Mm-hmm.
really had to break down the whole thought path in my head and go through it all, break it all down and think, right, where did that actually come from?
Mm-hmm.
And work on kind of reprogramming my head.
Yeah. Uh, so we'll start then with basically the Merriam-Webster definitions of each
Mhm.
to kind of just as a good starting point. And hey, Swifties, anybody watching in the comments at any time, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. We'll get to it. Um, I'm not particularly, Gemma's usually pretty good about catching things. I'm not the best at uh, seeing the comments as I'm going on about any particular thing. So Gemma will keep an eye on it for me, and we'll get
Yeah.
to any
I've
any
got it. Don't worry.
any questions or anything that you have. So let's start with the definitions. This is straight off of Merriam-Webster um, website. Guilt is defined as the fact of having committed a breach of conduct, especially violating law and involving a penalty. Um, and then your emotions of knowing that you did something wrong, and how you live from there on out with that overwhelming burden, basically. Shame is defined as a painful emotion caused by consciousness of guilt, shortcoming, or impropriety, or a condition of humiliating disgrace or disrepute. Uh, so, what does that mean? Does that sum up anything?
Yeah, I'm just letting them know, sorry about the questions, if they want to ask any questions but don't want to put their name to it. We now have a form that you can fill in, and it is anonymous. We will absolutely not know who it is at all, I can assure you. Unless you want to put your name to it, that's also fine. But yeah, that it does. Sorry.
That's quite all right. Yeah, I forgot. I forget to mention that as well.
No, it's
Um,
okay. It's only new, isn't it?
it's a great little tool that we've come
Mhm.
across, as far as submitting any questions anonymously.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so I'm glad we plugged that in there. But yeah, so not a whole lot from the Merriam-Webster's definitions. It's as
Mhm.
expected. It's kind of what's the word? Dry and not really helpful. So
Yeah.
basically, in breaking that down even more, guilt is kind of that feeling of remorse that you get, um, for the shit you've done, the stuff you've done, or you think that you've done wrong,
Mhm.
um, um, and relating to any kind of specific action, um, that, or maybe a mistake, could be a mistake that has hurt someone in the process. Um, so you get that burden, that overwhelming burden on your shoulders, weighing you down. Um, you did something wrong, even if it was a mistake, which is
Mhm.
sometimes that's the case, and that's fine. But it still weighs on your brain. And then shame is more along the lines of feeling that you're the problem. You're bad. You're inadequate as a person, relating to the behavior or yourself, um, not
Mhm.
necessarily a specific event, if that makes sense. So basically, breaking that down even further is that guilt is about an event, and shame is about you after the event.
Yeah.
Does that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, definitely. I've got
Yeah,
something here as well.
go ahead.
Um, so it kind of does. I was reading it the wrong way, I guess, when I read it to you. It gives you like a breakdown of two types of guilt: helpful guilt and unhelpful guilt, and then shame. Um, but like an example of the helpful guilt it gives is it says, like, say for example, someone hit someone while driving drunk and feels guilty for that. The helpful guilt is caused by the actions or the behavior that break the objective definitions of right and wrong. And it says that you can experience the guilt as early as age 3 to 6 years old, developmentally. And guilt is, it says guilt is more mature emotion than shame. And it says why we feel this way, we act this way, that breaks objective standards or moral behavior. So it's I guess it's a way of what it's saying is to show you, and so that you know right from wrong in a way. Whereas the shame side of things, like I'm not going to read the names because these names actually match people that may be on here. So it's just name example. Feels worthless person who is only taking up people's time and wasting space in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Shame is caused by an innate sense of being active. And it says that we can experience shame as early as 15 months old. Um, that is why shame is more deeply wired into our brain and is more difficult to reverse. We see ourselves as unworthy and deeply flawed. And it says shame causes us to fear that we will be rejected, so it tempts us to disconnect from others and avoid what causes us shame, which is certainly very true with how I was made to feel.
Yes. Um, and yeah, I'd like to get more into that. But when you were talking about the drunk driver scenario,
Mm,
I found something kind of similar um, that actually really nailed the point home. Um, the scenario was, say you're driving and get distracted and you run a red light and
mm.
almost hit someone. Um, so which one would you feel would be more you, Gemma,
Um,
with this scenario? Guilt would you would say, oh man, I really screwed up. I should be way more careful. I need to be better and pay more attention. Or
mhm,
shame would be, oh man, I'm a terrible driver. I'm such a piece of shit. I shouldn't be allowed to drive a car ever.
mm.
Which one do you feel like you would identify with more there if that scenario were to happen?
Um, I think I would feel the guilt of it, but I'd probably lean towards more the shame. Just automatically, that's the way that I'm wired. And I automatically think there is something about me and that I'm flawed rather than my actions that caused that. Do you know what I mean? Um, but after, I think we were talking about something the other day, and I said, I'm not going to say what it was, but I remember saying, I think after many years of having it drilled into you that you're not good enough, you're this, you're that, and often it's by people, in my case, my family, people that are supposed to be your protective factor, and then they start right from a very young age making you feel less worthy or like you are flawed and that there is something wrong with you. The more that that's drilled into you, the more you start to believe it and the harder it is to shake off.
Hmm. Absolutely, that is 100% true.
Mhm.
Um, so, looking further at the whole difference before we get much further in, do we feel pretty decent about what the difference there is? And everybody in the comment section, please drop a question if you have any. Really, it kind of just ultimately breaks down to guilt being that whole feeling of remorse and about the action, um, and then shame being more feeling down on yourself
Mm,
as a result of the action. So you take the very same action, and yeah, the guilt part of it will, uh, it can actually be helpful almost.
mhm,
You can find the guilt can help you find the problematic parts of the behavior or the action that took place, and you can kind of start to work towards a solution or maybe change yourself for the better,
Mm.
in some way or another. Excuse me. In some way or another, you can start working on the problem.
Mhm.
Guilt will allow you to move towards that direction. Shame, however, if you find flaw in yourself and instead of the behavior, so you're completely tearing yourself apart instead of looking at the overall picture and trying to solve that. Um, are you still feeling like you would be more on the shameful side of things hearing that, or?
Um, I certainly would feel shame still again, but I definitely think if I was to do that and sit down and break it down, I would be able to process the fact that it was guilt and it was something that I'd done and it was my actions that had caused it, not the fact that it was anything to do with me.
Yeah.
But I think you have to really be able to process what had happened to be able to do that.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I think myself, um, prior to going through all of what I went through, I was always feeling shame over guilt. Of course, like I said, they do go very much so hand in hand, guilt and shame. And a lot of people think they are, one and the same. Of course, that's what we're here for tonight, is to break both of them down. But I, looking at the way they're laid out, I was definitely more on the shame side of things. Like
Mm.
everything that I did, or every action that had a consequence, uh, I was down on myself constantly. Um, have a good day there, do. Um, always down on myself, always trying to figure out why I was, you know, the way I was and what was wrong with me. It wasn't ever the action. I wasn't trying to fix the overall picture. Um, and that's kind of like that long term, short term, you know, short term solution to a long term problem kind of thing. Does that make
Yeah, yeah.
sense?
Hmm.
Um, so, did you have anything else on your end with your table?
Have a look.
Because if not, we can also
Mm.
talk more. Now that we've kind of broken it down a little bit, we can talk.
The only thing it does now is say about ways to work with it and face each one. Oh, the link doesn't work for if literally all you have to do is type in tinyurl.com TMHH ask and you can't click the link on an iPad or a phone, unfortunately, with apps. But
Oh
that's why
no.
I've used the short link. But you can also go to bio.link. Hang on, bio.link. If I can type it in without spelling it wrong.
Yeah, we can drop the
E
bio link
N
in there,
H
and
A. And it's literally on there as well. Whichever's quickest for you to type, you can do those. All the socials and everything are on there as well.
will that link work with the iPad? I guess not.
You can't click directly onto the link, but if you copy and paste it or type it
Okay,
into the browser, it's just whichever's easiest, I guess.
I got you.
But I
Yeah,
have it open if anything comes through.
um, we did kind of touch on it briefly, but let's talk about this a little bit more. This um, this form that Gemma has created for us
Mhm.
is an excellent tool. I was actually really excited about the idea. If you go to the link provided or the bio link, it's in there as well. You can uh, type us a question or a thought or anything that's on your mind, that we can receive anonymously You can put your name if you don't mind sharing, but if you would rather remain anonymous, then that is also an option. And we
Mhm.
can go about addressing these questions that we receive on this anonymous form
Mhm.
on our show each week. So we
Yeah.
encourage everybody um, to give it a try. Click the link, ask us a question. If you don't mind having your name to it, we can bring it up in the broadcast. If you'd rather stay anonymous, that's an option as well.
Yeah, you
And
can either leave it empty where it asks for your name, or you can put an alias, whichever you want. Doesn't matter because I can't we've got no way of telling whether that's a real name or where it's come from at all. It's completely anonymous.
yeah, so that's really cool. I'm excited about it. I hope it gets used, and hopefully the overall hope would be to get enough questions that we could make a whole episode of just answering viewer anonymous questions. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that'd be good.
Hi, Jeeves. Welcome on in. So, all right, just a quick recap for all the people coming in now. We're talking
Mhm.
guilt and shame today, as you see in the title. Um, it's a widely thought of hand in hand kind of situation where it really is not. Guilt is definitely more towards feeling remorse over the action that took place or even if it was a mistake on your part or whatever, just feeling that overall burden of remorse on your that weighs heavy on you. Um, and then shame on the other side of the coin is more about you feeling inadequate, you feeling bad about yourself as a person, um, not really about the specific action or behavior. So guilt can actually be pretty helpful for us as a tool in finding and hopefully working on problematic behaviors.
Mm,
Whereas shame finds, flaw with the person instead of the action or behavior. So very important to understand that um, shame is kind of more detrimental for our mental health as a whole because
yeah.
we're basically just degrading ourselves over and over again over something that could very well be a mistake. It could not warrant all this extra thought. I know a lot of us. Lucia did a great episode a week or two ago about overthinking on her broadcast. It uh, it basically nails home shame. Jim, welcome on in. Thanks for the super heart.
Hey.
Um, yeah, so overthinking that episode that Lucia did was perfect for the thoughts of shame, or a
Mhm.
perfect way to think of shame. You're basically just way over analyzing, and we're all guilty of it. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's no secret to me or you. I'm sure that I know we've talked, and we both see eye to eye on that. Um,
Mhm,
we human beings as a whole tend to overthink the small
mhm,
stuff and think that the world maybe is out to get us, and a lot of it is typically unjustified, really. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, that's that whole shame thing. Weighing in on the overthinking. Do you have anything to add to that part?
Um, no, I know that I'm very, very guilty of that. Um, and it takes me some time at times to catch myself and think, "Hang on a minute, I'm doing it again."
Mm,
Even just the smallest stuff, I can turn into something huge at times, but I know that, like I said before, with me, I was made to feel like everything was my fault from being born. I was in plaster cast from my waist down to my toes, and I couldn't walk till I was 3. And I remember little comments as a young child, "Oh, we can't fit you in a pushchair, and we couldn't do this," and I've had to carry you on my side, and now I am suffering with pain because of that. And even from a young age, I remember thinking, "That's my fault, I've caused that, and they can't go places because of me, and they can't do things because of me." And as I've got older, it's got more and more to the point where I was outright told that my mother was given an option to have an abortion when I was obviously
Mhm.
before I was born, and that she should have chosen that. And it does really start, especially when the people that are saying it are meant to be the protective factor in your life. It really does start to put seeds of doubt in your mind. And I think it takes a lot longer to get out of that. It's really hard to get out of that and recognize that's what you're doing and try and break the cycle,
Were you putting
both
that?
for me and my son.
Were you putting that on yourself? The part about the abortion and that should have been what happened, or was your mom saying this?
No, that was what my mum was initially saying. She's told me twice that she was given the option to have an abortion
Mm.
before I was born. Apparently, she was told that I'd be severely disabled and that I she could have the option to terminate the pregnancy. And I was told that on a couple of occasions, one as a young child and then one earlier on, later on, should I say. And it's like that where I think it had got into my head that much that with that and everything else, okay, maybe they should have had the abortion, then I wouldn't be around, which certainly started off a chain of mass destruction in my head where I wanted to give them their wish
Mm-hmm.
and go ahead and succeed in not being here anymore. And it really was a destructive path that I was on with the whole shame side of things. I'd been shamed into thinking that everything that went wrong in my family's life was down to me.
Right.
And I
And
even changed career paths because of my family, because all I wanted to do was to make my mum pleased and proud of me.
right.
And I changed the whole way that I was going and steering just towards like, I ended up being a teacher. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but that wasn't the first thing I wanted to do with my life. And I kinda hoped that by doing that, I would achieve enough to get recognition in my family's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and then for them to finally say, "Look, we're proud of you." But they didn't even come to the graduation, so I didn't go either. And it got into me where I was like, "Ah, well, there's not a thing I can do that's gonna change this anymore." So I just thought, "Do you know what? Stuff it." It didn't stop the thought process of shame in my head of like, "Oh, that's my fault, that's my fault." Even if there was things that happened that I weren't even there for, it was like, "Oh, well, that'd be my fault anyway." And I had some very, very, in-depth counseling around the shame side of things, and it really did break it down for me, and luckily before Thomas was too much older, because it can be a really destructive cycle. And I had to break that cycle for my son's sake, because the last thing I wanted to do was inadvertently pass any of that on from me to him.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think that's what gives me more fight in my life is that there is no way he's going to have the childhood that I had. So I need to stop that.
Right. And
So,
it seems like you were not given much of an option there on your parents' end.
mhm,
With they're supposed to be there helping you and protecting you and getting you through these awkward times and emotional times and negative times as a child.
mm,
And it doesn't seem that they're instilling the right message. So you were almost set for failure from the get go with feeling this overwhelming shame.
mhm,
Um, but just take a minute and look at those comments there. Everybody,
Yeah, I'm looking at.
yeah, everybody here has your 100% has your back, and thank you everybody for speaking
Yeah,
up like
thank
that,
you.
and thanks for the awards. Um, all those awards are greatly appreciated, and that was a eye-opening story, and it really does hit home the whole
Mhm.
shame versus guilt thing, because
Yeah.
now you're feeling incredibly shamed. You're made to feel incredibly shamed, which
Mhm.
then which then gives you a guilty feeling on top of it. So
Yeah.
you're getting the full spectrum there. Um,
Oh, yeah, definitely. Um, I mean, part of me feels guilt for that, for what my sons had to witness as well, and I think if all of this had come to a head before Thomas was born, things would have been different, but it took me till I think he was about 2 2 or 3 years old before I realized that my upbringing was far from normal, and that basically they were described as narcissists, and that wasn't right, and that's not how should things should be. And Thomas had already witnessed a lot of it because my parents would do that in front of him, to the point now where he will make the odd comment, and I think, "That's my mom that's come through him." Sometimes she will say something to him, knowing it will get back to me, and
mhm,
then sometimes he's just picked up on something that has been said and used it at a later date,
mhm,
and, that is why I think had I have had this before, it would have been easier for me to deal with because I'd have just gone, I'd have just left, whereas I honestly thought that I needed the support from them, and whilst, yes, I do have some support from them, is that support worth all the weight and the baggage that it comes with,
mhm.
you know?
That is heavy. Um, Once again, thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for all the awards, Trisha and Jim and Ella and everybody. Um, Dina D, hello. Sweet Pea, Ella, I said. Just want to make
Uh-huh.
sure. TJ obviously is here. Love TJ. Um, yeah, welcome everybody in. We are talking guilt and shame and the difference between the two. Gemma's sharing quite a very heavy story about how it plays a role in her health or her mental health in her life.
Mm.
Um, so during all this, I guess as a follow up question, if you don't mind,
Okay.
have you ever thought to put them out? You're not welcome around Thomas if you're going to act this way. I can't be having
Oh,
this.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
uh, was that ever a thing? Because I
All
don't
the
think so.
time.
Yeah. But
Yeah, like, certainly I have done with my dad for a while because my dad was very physical at times as well. But I have, and I actually physically stopped them coming to the house for a little while. But I also noticed that it was making my son very upset because he missed them, and I couldn't I couldn't deal with that because I was then feeling guilt because I didn't have grandparents really when I was little. My grandma, my only one grandma that I remember being alive, collapsed and died in front of me when I was very, very young, and I always wanted to have the grandparents and stuff, but I didn't get that chance. Um, and for many, many years, I held the guilt of what happened to my grandma as well, because she collapsed in front of me,
Mm,
and she came to say goodnight to me at one point, and her voice was funny, and I honestly thought she was making up a silly voice, just like she would do
mhm,
that at times, and I laughed. And then the next thing, she collapsed literally in front of me,
mhm,
and I remember screaming and screaming, like, for my mum and dad. Um, I don't think I was into double figures with the age. I'm pretty sure I was still in primary school, like 8, I think I wanna say. And, I never saw her alive again. She was taken into hospital and died not long after. But, I didn't want my son to have that because on his for the benefit of the, broadcast, we'll call him a father, but anyway,
mhm.
his father, um, could call him other things,
Yes.
doesn't bother with him at all, and neither did his parents. His mother told me to have an abortion, and I it upset me that he wouldn't have all his grandparents, so for me to feel like I was taking that away from him as well, I felt really guilty for that because I'm like, "Well, is it me stopping them because of what they're doing to me? Because they are actually really good with him."
Mhm,
And so in the way of now, as far as seeing him goes, I have said to them that this is on my terms, and if anything at all is mentioned that I don't agree with, often I will go to their house to see them because then I can physically remove myself and him from the situation. And it's a lot easier for me to leave there than it is for them to come here and me ask them to leave
yeah.
because I can't physically force them out of the door. And since I did, like, discuss that with them, it's not been as bad. There has been a few slip ups,
Mhm.
but nothing as bad. But I think my downward spiral with my health has also helped, if it can,
Yeah.
because they've seen how bad I have been, and that is, that's maybe helped in the way of they're not quite as bad with me, but th they can go there with it
Mhm.
still, and they do. So, for my son's sake, I keep that open between them, but
Yeah,
I
because I
know
mean,
if
how do you tell Thomas that he can't see his grandparents if obviously he's not going to
mm,
understand what you're
yeah,
going through quite yet. But yeah,
I mean, he actually did, say something on a couple of occasions to my mum, and one of the times he said to her, he says, "You can't come round here and upset my mummy,"
hmm.
and I was taken aback by that, like, wow. Um,
Kids will surprise you every now and again.
yeah,
I see it with my stepkids.
mm, and
They're
it was like, "Ooh."
yeah.
And, he's also asked her not to shout at me as well. He says, "Will you not shout at my mummy? I don't like it."
Hmm.
And that was a surprise for me, and I think the fact that that came from him made her realize, "Oh god," you know? So that certainly did help as well.
Yeah, I do like to hear,
Mm,
when kids step up like that, and it takes you back. It does. 'Cause
yeah.
I've seen it here too. It's actually pretty cool. But
Mhm.
yes, thank you for sharing that part of your life with everyone.
I know.
Um, it breaks down even more,
Mhm.
the difference between the guilt and the shame, but also that they can still go hand in hand. It's not. I wasn't trying to say, in the beginning, that they're so totally different that they don't actually relate to
Mm.
each other or go. No, they are coupled together for a reason. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
shame definitely causes guilt, and guilt shame, but
Mhm.
the point was that guilt being more of the action, the burden felt after the
Mhm.
action, and shame being uh, the detrimental, uh,
Yeah.
always down on yourself, and I'm not worth anybody's time. I'm not worth being here. Um, I'd be better off if I wasn't here. That kind of stuff.
Mhm.
That's just completely unnecessary to put on your own brain and to tax yourself mentally, um, because that's just simply not true. Uh,
Mhm.
it's 100% not true. This world would not be a better place without you. And everybody out there needs to know that. I don't care
Mhm.
what you've done and who, there is no reason to ever think that this would be a better place without you. Um,
Mhm.
that being
Absolutely.
said,
Everybody's here for a reason.
yes, um, even um, Thomas's dad, you mentioned
Mhm.
him. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
the everybody has a right and a literal
Mhm.
place in this world, and like it, dislike it. Um, Nobody should ever feel in their own mind that they don't belong and that
For
they
sure.
don't have a place here and that they should have been terminated and all of that. That's just it's not
Yeah.
healthy. It's not true.
Mhm.
And yeah, this world would be worse off without you than it is.
Everybody, everybody in the whole world has a place in this world. It's just sometimes when people meet, they don't necessarily get on together. But that's not to say that they shouldn't be here. It just means they shouldn't be in your circle, perhaps.
Hmm.
And everybody will have somebody they can connect with. It doesn't mean that we have to connect all together. But yeah,
Absolutely.
like you said, everybody's got a place in the world.
Absolutely. So, I mean,
Mhm.
knowing that, knowing what guilt and shame is now, and the difference between the two, and how we can actually use guilt to our favor. Uh, Guilt is kind of, like that. I like to think of it as like the word worry, and everybody has blown worry, the simple term of worrying about something. They've blown it into this humongous anxiety, clinical. And you know what, I have anxiety. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just
Mhm.
saying it's taking a small word like that and then giving it a big title like anxiety, and it becomes a lot more scary. um, it's when we worry about things, we get stuff done, right? We worry that we have to pay the electric bill,
Mhm.
and we worry that the date's coming and all that, and you know what we do? We pay the electric bill, you know. So worrying gets stuff done. Worrying has its place, just like guilt. Guilt has a place here, and it can be used as a helpful tool. When we're feeling guilty, we can, you know, find we know why we're feeling guilty because our brains won't let us not think about it. So that identifies our problem or our behaviors, and then from there we can kind of make some try and work towards a solution, or maybe go about things a little differently. So that's using it to your advantage. Guilt.
Mhm.
I don't really see any way that shame can be used as an advantage to you, because that's literally just knocking yourself down.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, how do we cope with guilt um, in our everyday life? Everybody is prone to guilt and shame. It's not discriminatory. It's not okay. Only alcoholics deal with guilt and shame. It's everybody. Hell, you said in the beginning, it can. What was the? Can you go back and read that bullet point you had about it being instilled in children at an early age? If you have it
Yeah, that was
handy.
quite surprising to me. About
But it drives the point
the one
home that
for shame. The one for shame, you say?
yeah,
Okay, so it says we can experience shame as early as 15 months old. That is
15
why
months.
shame is more deeply wired into our brain and is more difficult to reverse.
So a little over 1 year old.
Mhm.
You're you're just starting to figure out how to walk and talk, and you already are experiencing shame.
That's sad.
It's crazy.
That's sad to think.
It's crazy to think.
Hmm.
So how do we cope? Let's let's look at this. Coping with guilt. We'll start with guilt.
Yeah, I've got some here. They might overlap.
Um, I have 5 for each that I just kind of wrote down, little notes. I didn't take any particular list.
Hmm.
The first thing I thought was appropriate to look at was, is the guilt warranted? Is the guilt appropriate? The guilt that we're feeling, did does it deserve our time? Can we think about it and rationalize something another way? Are we overthinking? Um, so that's number one. Is it appropriate? If it's not, let's move on. If it
Hmm.
is, all right, let's take a deeper look. Um, Number two, make some changes. Don't wallow. Don't sit there and just live in it. Start making some
Hmm.
changes and use guilt to your advantage in that way. Number three, accept you did wrong and move forward. Kind of more of the same there, but it's that radical acceptance of accepting that you did something wrong. You fucked up. Oh, quite simply.
Pretty
Let's
much. Yep.
let's take that and let's move forward.
Hmm.
Um, number four is learning from our mistakes. That's right in line with it. And number five, recognize that no one is perfect.
Hmm.
We live in this disillusion. Is that a word? We live in this fantasy that
Hmm.
everyone walking around on Earth is perfect except for us. Like
Hmm.
we screw up everything, um,
Yeah.
and so down the street doesn't have anything wrong with him or her.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Social media is brilliant for that. We were talking about that the other day, weren't we?
Yeah.
Look at like when you go onto Facebook and you see everybody being happy, but they only post what you wouldn't post yourself in a really shitty situation. And like I'm guilty of it myself, looking at people on such as social media and thinking, "Oh wow, they're having a really nice life. They're doing this. They're on that holiday. They've got that car. They've got this. They've got that. Why haven't I? Is it because I've done this wrong, that wrong?" And then it starts like from, "Wow, look at what they've got," to, "Look at what I don't have. What is wrong? What have I done wrong? Why haven't I got that?"
Hmm. So Jim asks,
Hmm.
how does one stop being a sponge, absorbing every time they are wrong, and not being able to let go? Um, you want to take a stab at it there, Gemma?
Yeah, let me read it again. How does one stop being a sponge? Yeah, that's certainly something that I've had to do. Um, Basically, the way I was told to do it, like, if you look at yourself as an outsider, and like, if you imagine, say, your best friend and the things that you're absorbing, would you say that to your best friend? Would you tell your best friend that they're worthless, they're a piece of crap, you've done that wrong, you've done that wrong? If you wouldn't, and it's up, you know it would upset them, why allow it for yourself? Because if you're letting people say all this crap to you and absorbing it and taking it in, the more you take in, certainly, like I know this is true for myself, the more you take in, the more you start to believe it, and the more you start actually acting like it at times, because you believe it that much that it just destroys everything about you, and then you've got nothing left.
Hmm.
Um,
I like to.
but you just have to have a bit of self-compassion. That's something I struggled with. But they
That's it.
say if you wouldn't say it and accept it for a friend who you care about, why would you accept it for yourself?
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head there. A little self compassion goes
Mhm.
a long way.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I used to. feel that exact same way all the time. Um, Before this was pre rehab. Uh,
Mhm.
I couldn't let things go. I was always uh, thinking that I was in the wrong. I wasn't able to let anything go, basically, like Jim was
Mm.
saying. And I don't have the mind space for that anymore. Um, Certainly, the uh, sobriety has helped because drinking as much as I did, as frequently as I did, really construed the way I saw the world, or I thought the world saw me, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, it just intensified all the negative um, and negative thinking. Um, but now I have to. You kind of deal with that as the same way as you would with like a troll on here. Um, Obviously, that guy's not having a great day, but thanks
Mhm.
for stopping in, and we'll see you on the next one. Um,
Yep.
it's literally just kind of brushing it off now, and
Mhm.
it is a skill that takes a little practice, I would say,
Oh, yeah.
because it's not an easy thing to do when you feel attacked, to
Mhm.
just kind of let it go. But it's the healthiest thing. What what is this guy or a girl or whoever? Uh, why does he or she think that I care so much about what they think of me that I'm going to walk around for the next half a day to a day and think nothing else but about what they said?
Mhm.
I don't even hardly know that person, or if you did know them, still same thing applies. I'm not going to waste my day walking around thinking, man, Joe down the street, man, I really wanted him to like me, but I guess I set my garbage out the wrong time of day, and that just really upset him, and now he hates me. And you know what? Oh well. I'll try and set my garbage out at another time. Obviously, it pissed him off,
Mhm.
and you know what? I'm not going to worry about it further than that. Um,
There are some people in this life that you will upset no matter what you do,
that's also true.
because they will just never, ever appreciate you as a person or what you do. I guess you just have to recognize that and think, "Okay, well, that person's not for me then." That happened to me, a few months ago. Some people are aware,
Mm.
and I could have let that destroy me, and it very, very nearly did, but I just thought, "You know what? Life's too short for that one person that hates me. There's another 10 cheering me on somewhere." And there is.
And you know
It's
what's
very true.
you know what's even like it's almost a win for you
Mhm,
if you don't if you show them that that doesn't bother you. Um, if they want to be rude or mean,
mhm,
um, it's basically the same thing I tell my rookies at the fire station. Like
mhm.
don't don't keep telling the guys what bothers you because they're just gonna keep picking at that one thing. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
Act like shit doesn't bother you, and they'll leave you alone. It's no fun
Mhm.
to mess with somebody that doesn't give a shit. You know,
Oh, absolutely.
if you come off
That's what
like
they thrive on.
and then you can walk away with your head held high, like you
Mhm,
took the W on that one. Um,
mhm.
anyway, I hope that answered the question, Jim.
Yeah.
Uh, Coping with shame. We went over guilt. Here's shame, real quick. Five things I found useful. Use affirmations to practice self compassion. Boy, that sounds familiar.
Mhm.
Kind of like we just went over that, huh?
Yep.
Number two, come back to your body. Um, that can mean a number of things, but I take that more literally in the sense of recentering yourself, grounding, um, coming back to you and only you,
Mm.
and not letting your mind wander aimlessly in the wrong direction. Um, Overthinking, you know. Number 3, try exercising and moving more. It seems that exercise is on the list of everything. Um,
Yeah.
the cure for everything, exercise. Isn't that something?
Mm.
The one thing I can't stand is the cure to everything.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
recognize your triggers. Number 4. Um, this becomes paramount in everything mental health related. Everybody has triggers. Everybody gets upset. We need to recognize our triggers. We need to know what they are, when they're coming on, and how
Hmm.
to cope with them. How to ground yourself, how to get through that situation. Recognizing them is step 1. And the last thing I had for coping with shame was put the thought on trial. Um, I thought that was a great way to sum it up. Basically, take that thought that you have so much shame and that you're dragging yourself through the mud over, and put it on trial. Kind of the same thing with number 1. Is the guilt appropriate? Uh, pros and cons lists, or right and wrong list about the specific action. Is this shame warranted? Maybe a little bit, but you don't have to be. I mean, shame is still a normal emotion. It's going to come and go, but you don't have to be so severely shamed that you're just thinking way outside of the realm of where you need to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I have for coping. What did you have anything I did not hit that you liked?
Um, Let me find it. I think it's all round about the same thing. Certainly with um the shame. It just again it exercises about self-compassion. Shift feelings of shame and move to awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Move away from self-criticism or proof of inadequacy. It tells you to pursue relationships. It doesn't mean like romantically, just relationships like with friends and stuff. Nurture connections and a sense of belonging with others. And then, if I can find it, there was a saying that I found on online. There's a couple actually that I liked, and it says, "You were born to be real, not perfect. You're here to be you, not to be what someone else wants you to be. Stand up for yourself. Look them in the eye and say, 'Don't judge me until you know me. Don't underestimate me until you've challenged me, and don't talk about me until you've talked to me.' And then don't chase people. Work hard and be you. The right people who belong in your life will eventually come and find you and stay there. Do your thing."
That's a beautiful way to kind of bring this to a close.
Hmm.
We'll do a quick recap for everyone and replay viewers. Thank you guys for all being here. Let's remember that tonight, absolutely not Dina D. Absolutely not. Um, let's remember that tonight is Catalyst Wednesday with Jim in Chicagoland. I'm assuming, is Jim still here?
Yeah.
Are you going to be out on the patio with the fire, or is it what's the weather in Chicago like there? Because we're all looking forward after this heavy episode for a little decompression by the fire pit. Um, so,
Yeah.
well, fire pit tonight, excellent. And I did just present a comment from TJ I missed earlier. Another
Mm.
a good little sum up there. I learned more and more that everyone has their own issues that you may not see. Very
Hmm.
true. Very true.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah.
has issues. I am not doing the llama Dina. That's for Beardo and Weirdo only. This is a serious broadcast. So guilt and shame. Guilt is about the action and that burden of remorse, and shame is overtaking yourself. You're dragging yourself through the mud. Guilt can be
Hmm.
a good tool. That was one of the most important things I wanted everybody to take from tonight, is that you can use guilt to your advantage. You use it to help you find and work on problematic behaviors instead of wallowing around and shaming yourself. Remember that shame finds flaw with the person instead of the behavior. Guilt is that if you weren't here earlier, the scenario was you're driving a car and get distracted, run a red light, and you almost hit someone. Guilt says, oh man, I really screwed up. I should be way more careful. I need to be better than that. I need to pay more attention. And shame comes in saying, oh man, I'm a terrible driver. I'm such a piece of shit. I shouldn't be allowed to drive a car. They should take my license.
Mhm.
That's the basic breakdown of the two. And then, the coping skills we just went over, so I won't go back over. That should still be fresh. Uh, well, Gemma, another great episode with you. Thanks for, taking the time to open up there and share that.
No worries.
That was some uh, heavy material there. And now it makes sense why you wanted to do this episode, huh?
Yeah. No, like, I wasn't planning on letting it all out, actually. I just rolled with it, but, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, I think it was great.
yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff which is why I wanted this show to be a thing. I want more people to feel like they can open up like that and
Mhm.
not be afraid, because everybody goes through this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody does. Some people handle it better than others.
Mhm.
Some people don't handle it very well at all, as I wound up in not a great place. But everybody goes through it. And that's what everybody needs to remember,
Mhm.
that nobody in this world is alone with any of this shit. So thank you
Oh, yeah.
guys for joining in. Make sure you catch Jim tonight at Catalyst around the fire pit. We'll all have a kumbaya and decompress for the day. Midweek, almost the weekend. Kids went back to school today. Hell yeah.
Oh, wow, I've got another 2 weeks. No!
All right.
Oh, dear.
Uh, well, good luck to you there. Uh,
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
we'll see everybody next week at the same time, hopefully, unless
Mhm.
if we do secure a guest that can't, then we'll change the time up a little bit. But as of now, it stands Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 p.m. UK.
Mhm.
And we'll see everybody later. Bye.
Bye.